Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love the Champions League as much as your boys do, kick it with us, make a little history with us, advance to the final with us, subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X if you're into that sort of thing. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. I think those were two really interesting semifinal second legs. We got there. It's been a long journey. I think there's only one thing to do, and it's to celebrate making it to the final.
Let's go. Bilbao, here we come. Now, this very special UEFA Women's Champions League semifinal recap edition of the Into the Channel podcast. So really just two options here to choose from. Not a wrong answer in the bunch. London on Saturday, Paris on Sunday. Mr. Grant Angle, where do you want to get started?
Let's start with the champions. And let me just say real quick, you're just a much more brave man than me, because there is a 0% chance anybody will ever catch me singing on the internet and putting it out there. So, I mean, shout out to you. It's why I love doing the show with you. I mean, you know.
I'm such a sucker for it. I can't resist. It's just, it's probably delightful to just me and maybe one other person out there, but I'm going to keep doing it whenever I feel it, bubbling up inside me, and I just got to let it out.
If there's one person in the world that finds it delightful, I do. So there's got to be more than just one. So I'm on your side with that. I mean, shout out to you for doing it.
That's my guy right there. I appreciate that.
So let's start with the champions. Barcelona defeats Chelsea 2-0 at Stamford Bridge, advances 2-1 on aggregate. Tough go for Chelsea. Before we get into the thing, we'll talk about the thing. But let's give some credit to Barcelona, who had to go into London. They had to make some changes to their lineup. What they did in the first leg didn't work. Chelsea looked great in Spain when they played.
Yep.
And it feels like a reasonable place for us to start with future Washington Spirit manager, Jonathan Hernández.
They're going to need him after what my pride did to them this past weekend. We'll talk about that later.
Good flex.
I like the changes. I mean, we talked about Mariona's struggles in the first match. We talked about Rolfo looking good. I think Bronze came on in the first match, looked good as well. So moving Lucy Bronze in, big game player, got to respect that move. Moving Fridolina Rolfo up the pitch, got to respect that move. And I feel like it worked out pretty well. I think the formation was interesting. They were out on the front foot. They got a little lucky. No Myra Ramirez. But credit to them. They did what they needed to do, and I think it started from the lineups.
For sure, yeah. Let me echo what you said about Lucy Bronze. Just key stops in dangerous areas of the field down the wing. She can drift into the middle, give you some control in there. I just feel like, she's a Lioness. Obviously, I root for her for the English national team. There can be a little bit of a Lucy Bronze experience, though. We've seen, she had some rough moments earlier in the Champions League. You'll see them happen in Liga F from time to time. But
Lucy Goosey Bronze.
It seems like you have these types of players where it's like, when I really, really need it, she's there. But let me pass it back to you on this. There is a player who, when you really, really need it, you could always guarantee that she's going to be there. Even probably when you don't need her, she's probably going to be there.
Let's go.
I think arguably the greatest player in the world, Aitana Bonmati. This felt like a Bonmati game.
100%. I mean, she definitely reminded everybody that she's at the very mountaintop of the sport. She controlled the entire match. Her passes, her runs, her vision, her decision-making, everything was super on point. She obviously gets the goal early. She draws the penalty later. We'll talk about that one in a little bit. Mm-hmm. She even, her IQ is such that she even, at the death of the match, kind of gingerly works her way off the pitch, maybe is she injured? What's going on? Oh, she got the announcers kind of clutching their pearls. And then she makes sure to dead sprint toward Alexia to give her a big old high five, just as a big FU to the Stamford Bridge crowd, being like, I do what I want out here, and I'm going to control the match even after I've been subbed off and have an impact even then. So I think really, really great showing. We talked about last week about Barcelona getting blanked at home, getting beat at home, having to go to Stamford Bridge. back against the wall, elimination, all that good stuff. And what would they do? Like, how would they respond? And I think to have your best player come out, set the tone, like not only like emotionally, but with her play. It was technically also. You don't always get both of those like hand in hand. Yep. She was just dominant.
I mean, for everybody who enjoys the NBA as much as your boys do, the LeBron blueprint game for the Heat against the Celtics, where it's just like, it's one of those games where it's not the championship round or it's not the final, but everybody remembers it. It's like, this is an all-timer. I kind of think this Aitana performance is going to go down like that. Like, real hoopers know. So I think when we're talking about it, like, people are just going to be like, yeah, that semifinal, she fucking dominated the game. I thought it was funny. Shout out to the Stamford Bridge crowd who showed up mega fucking big time for the match. Sold out stadium for it. They knew it was shithousery. I always think it's funny in American sports, never cheer when somebody gets hurt. Don't boo somebody when they're hurt. It's bad form. But in football, she's like gingerly walking off the pitch. And I try to be as sensitive about these things as I possibly can. She's gingerly going off the pitch. I'm like, oh yeah, she's full of shit. And like you said, though, that little piece, that was the needle that she stuck into the fans and the other team of, let me run over to Alexia real quick just to high-five her. A+ performance from her all around.
100%, yeah. And I'm a little bit jealous. I almost went to the LeBron comparison, but I'm like, it's but it's so right on the money. Like, best player in the world, doing best player in the world type shit in a huge spot. That was the first cross-sport parallel that I thought of, watching Beaumati just dominate this one. I want to scoot ahead a little bit. The ref situation.
Yes.
Situations, if you will.
Yeah.
What, where do we get started with this?
You know me well enough to know I'm a big old baby when it comes to this stuff sometimes. Now, I try to walk a line of where I hate blaming the refs for a result, and especially in this case. And, we consciously started this podcast talking about Barcelona because I think they deserve to win it. I think they deserve to advance. They played well.
Better team.
They dominated the ball in the first half. Their passes look good. We talked about they had the best player on the field who played the best. I think all that is pretty easy to say. But still, big old man baby Grant in the moment, when that second yellow comes, and first, let's get this out of the way. The first yellow on Buchanan, fair play. That was a yellow card. That was a yellow card foul. When that ref pulled out the yellow, I don't think the yellow was shown on the broadcast, but I see the red get shown. I am literally seeing red, and I'm like, fucking ref ball. God damn it, nobody's here to see you. You fucking ruined this game. I fucking hate this shit. Why? The only way, in the last podcast where I said, where of course me in my grand wisdom said, I don't think there's any way anything could happen to ruin this game. She shows the red card, and I'm like, how could you do this? This is such a horseshit way to officiate this game.
No disagreements there. I laughed a little bit because I'm going to pull back the curtain here a little bit. Grant and I share game notes before we do the show, just so we can kind of like, all right, where were you at? Where am I at? Sure. And I didn't see your game notes, right? But you texted me after the match. You're like, so, hey, man, what'd you think about the yellow card situation? Like, calm as shit. And I was just like, I didn't really like it. And then when I check your game notes, it's like, fucking fuck, what the fuck? It's just like a level like 25. You had certainly cooled off by the time you texted me to get my take on it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. It really just sucks. I mean, players have bad moments. Very, very, very bad moment from the ref.
I think so.
But what I texted you was, I don't know if that was even the most egregious moment. Right. Because the Aitana penalty, in real time, I'm like, oh, what was that? I mean, like, she goes flying, right. and it doesn't look like there's any kind of, I'm like, maybe I missed, a clipping of the leg, or I don't know, maybe something happened that I didn't see in real time. And then they show the replay. It's pretty much Buchanan with a hand kind of like brushing up on her hip, and Lawrence kind of like on the top of her, some combination of like very, very nothing of nothing.
Yeah.
And it goes to VAR, and the penalty gets confirmed. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, that was a rough call. I couldn't help but think about the foul on Ramirez in the first match. 60-second minute. I had to go back and watch it. Irene Paredes kicks right across Ramirez's shin in the box. Ramirez goes flying. She still sort of has control of the ball. Like, the most obvious of penalties, we talked about it last week, and I'm like, so that wasn't a penalty? And I think that the VAR check on that Ramirez one was maybe 10 seconds. Like, right. I mean, like before they showed the replay half a time, and that, the ref had already kind of moved on with the match. So I don't know that it would have mattered, like you said, because obviously these circumstances, Barcelona outshot Chelsea pretty handily. They look like the better team. Ramirez does get injured in the second match, takes the bite completely out of the Chelsea attack, only really emboldens this Barcelona attack. So I think it was going to happen either way, but you just hate to see it happen like that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's going to be a little bit of the story of the game. I think personally, the story of the game for me is still probably going to be Aitana and kind of her dominance. You just kind of feel like whatever they would have needed, she would have been able to produce one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But you just kind of hate for a match to go that way. And Khadija Buchanan, after having a pretty solid first go round with Barcelona, obviously they go there and shut them out. This is a match she's going to want to forget for sure. She's sort of involved in the Aitana deflection early, the 2 yellow cards. Really good player, just really rough day.
Yeah, hate to see that. Buchanan's an excellent player. Like you said, an absolute beast in the first leg.
Yep.
So to see it go down like that, super unfortunate, especially because of the second yellow. And I think you raised a good point too. And, after I had calmed down, you tend to help me calm down after these things. I had some time to maybe chill out a little bit. But I concede the second yellow, it's still a foul. Like, I totally get that. And so then you'll hear like pundits or players or managers say, if it was a foul and you're already on a yellow and you're really on the line, then you have to be as careful as possible. I can sort of understand that argument. I can understand it intellectually, at least. I think it was unnecessary. I think you call the foul and say, hey, I gave you a yellow 5 minutes ago. One more bad one, and I have to send you off. I think that's typically how you see most refs handle that situation. I got a shout out, friend of the program, Leanne Sanderson, rightly called it in the post-match coverage for DAZN. She said the refereeing was, quote, very poor. And I think that's a fair way to describe it. There was a phantom handball call on Ingrid Egan, like later in the match, where they show the replay. They call it, and I was like, ooh, that was weird. I thought it might have bounced off her stomach or bounced off her chest. And it didn't even do that. It didn't even make contact with her body. And both announcers are just laughing like, yep, didn't make any contact with anything. And it got called a handball. So it was just like really, really rough match for the referee. You hate to see it in a spot like this.
Looking at that Chelsea side, though, definitely felt like, I don't know, however you want to think about it, the football god's not on their side. A little bit snake bitten. Myra Ramirez, that's a tough loss to kind of go into this one. You rewind a little bit. Sam Kerr, Mia Official injured, Millie Bright, who got a little run in this one, but spent most of the Champions League, recuperating the 2 yellow cards, the deflection. Leopolds puts one off the bar. New Skin puts one off the bar. I mean, these are like real chances, and it just kind of just was not going to break Chelsea's way. On the field, though, production-wise, I want to shout out Ashley Lawrence.
Yes.
We kind of talked about, hey, what's the deal with CGH? Do we get a CGH game this game? Turns out, no. Because Ashley Lawrence is on the job. She was a menace. She was everywhere. She looked upper world-class type player. The same type of dominant, both defensively, being able to initiate, create offense. The flip side, Lauren James, one of the ITC favorites.
Yeah.
I just do not know what was going on. I think Lauren James kind of benefits from being like 10 or 15 or 20% more clever than her opponents in most spots.
Yeah.
And it just felt like none of that was working. She had one really, really good ball. And I think one thing I noticed about Barcelona defensively, they shut down the first pass, like completely. Your second and third outlet, they kind of have those covered too. You kind of have to hit your fourth or fifth outlet to like kind of make something happen. Yeah. She had one beautiful ball up the field to Macario. Didn't end up going anywhere, but it was like just a genius ball. But I think those moments were very few and far between. I think Barcelona mentally was at the level of Lauren James. Lauren James usually is able to outsmart most other players.
Yeah.
That was not going to work in this one against this Barcelona side. So very curious to hear what you thought of kind of like Chelsea, what was working, what wasn't working.
Yeah, I'm going to go one more real quick. You shouted out Rolfo and Bronze in the beginning. Rolfo was largely on LJ's side of the field. And so when most of your game is predicated on being 10 to 15% smarter than your opponent, good luck with that against Fridolina Rolfo or Lucy Bronze in other cases.
Yep.
I thought Ingrid Eggen, I mentioned the phantom handball on her, and, she's been a target for other squads. I thought she really held her own in this match too.
Yep.
A lot of credit to them. But on the Chelsea side, yeah, I mean, so you got a good match out of Lawrence. I thought you got a pretty good match out of Ritten Kanerud. It wasn't a Cuthbert game. It wasn't an LJ game. It wasn't a Macario game. And we're starting to run out of playmakers here. It wasn't a Nuskin. Like, it wasn't one of the games where Nuskin bubbles up and creates like big chances for you. So you have to credit Barcelona, but I know that those players in the Chelsea dressing room are kind of looking at themselves going, I wish I could have done 8%, 10% more.
It's like a story kind of as old as sports. When you're the team that's playing from behind a little bit, maybe talent-wise or actually like on the scoreboard, you just kind of have to take advantage of those opportunities. Actually, LJ did have that really nice cross to Leopold's. She puts it on the crossbar, wide open goal. Like, she could have put it pretty much anywhere. And it's one of those things, like, you always hear it. You have to cash in on the opportunities if you want any chance of beating a team like Barcelona.
Yeah. Our guy, Dan Johannes, tends to chat with us about some of these matches over Twitter while we're watching them. And he said that exactly. I thought he hit the nail on the head too, where it was just like, it's probably a different match if that Leopold's goal goes in early. If somebody's able to capitalize on like one of the half chances that they had, we're looking at a whole different match. And then the crowd at Stamford Bridge is reacting completely different to everything too if they put one in like the first like 40 minutes or something like that. So yeah, it's just like with Barcelona, it's like we talked about with the margin for error. You have to play well. You have to hope to get some near misses from them. And then you have to get some luck on your side. And if you're not checking all three of those boxes, you probably lose 2-0 at home.
That's fair. Yeah, and I think the luck was on Barca's side as well. Obviously they get the call, they get the deflection, a little bit of refereeing luck sprinkled in there. One last note on Chelsea, I think they kind of just ran out of options, right? Like Kat Macario, like when she's looking the most effective, it's kind of like when everybody's packed into the final third, she could be like really creative and crafty in tight areas. Running the break is kind of like not her game. Like, that's why the Ramirez injury was such a loss.
Yeah.
The only thing I can really think about is maybe some of the substitutions. Emma Hayes, maybe waited just a smidge long to kind of make some big moves there. Barcelona knocks in the penalty in the 75th. Emma Hayes goes to Aggie Beaver-Jones about a minute later. But then she waits till the 84th minute. And I know, she's got to like pack that substitution window. Maybe it's a Millie Bright minutes restriction thing. But 84th minute to bring on Perisset, Fran Kirby, and Millie Bright kind of felt, obviously this is a desperate moment. So obviously it's going to feel a little bit desperate. But I kind of feel like LJ was so ineffective, and like Fatmob's got like that very handy dandy player rating. Oh, yeah. So LJ was the second lowest Chelsea rated player, only above Khadija Buchanan, who had the game from hell. So that's not great. Maybe you kind of go try a different type of attack a little bit sooner. I would have liked to see maybe like Wrighton, Aggie, and Kanerud play together and like just maybe turn into a little bit of a track meet, see if something happens there. Maybe Fran Kirby kind of trailing, and tough to kind of second guess. Like, for all the talk that we're kind of zooming in on Chelsea and these chances, Baduelo had chances, like Barcelona had other chances. You tend to forget those because they won the match. But again, I think they were the better team. They deserve to go through. I'm not leaving this one feeling too crestfallen with the result.
Yeah, I think, fair result. Cool to see Millie Bright on the pitch, and even cooler to see them have her almost basically play number 9 when they put her on the pitch. I mean, I think a lot was said during the World Cup that she grew up as a number 9, and I'm not sure if it was part of her early playing career. I haven't looked that far into it, but she has the skills to do it, and you already know how dangerous she is with crosses into the box. So thought that was interesting. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I would have liked to see Wrighton, Kirby, and even if you want to put Millie out there, maybe a little earlier. But yeah, to your point, easy to kind of armchair manager it now, but the final piece of the attack was not working for them. So I'm sure Emma Hayes is giving this an awful lot of thought herself, but I think her next job, she has some stuff lined up she has some other things to worry about and other trophies to possibly win.
Hopefully she lands on her feet. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think the story of this one will probably be From a Chelsea standpoint, I'll probably think about the Ramirez injury because she was
Yep.
such a terror at Barcelona. That's kind of like the biggest what if that I'm going to take with me out into the future. But I do want to focus on the defending champs, Barcelona. They're heading to the final. Congratulations to them. Took care of business. What do you think they can take into the final? Like, basically, we've watched this team very, very closely. A lot of Liga F action, a lot of Champions League action. The state that they're in, what do you think they're taking into the final?
Based on the state that they're in the final, but in the semifinal, Selma Betuelo and Caroline Graham Hansen didn't really do a lot in either of those semifinal legs.
Yep.
So I think in the optimistic point of view, well, two of our three best players didn't do much and we got through. But then in the pessimistic take, hey, two of our three best players aren't doing much. What the hell's going on there?
I shouted out earlier, Ashley Lawrence, I think she was a nightmare for CGH to deal with.
Yep.
Looking ahead a little bit to this Lyon side, you could maybe think about an Ellie Carpenter and try to think about what's that matchup going to look like. Baduelo, though, you brought it up last week. Like Aitana had a run, maybe like around the 15, 20-minute mark of the first match, where it's like Aitana, Salma on one wing, CGH on the other, and you're just like, here we go. I kind of feel like maybe there's an opportunity to get back to a little bit more of that, just so you can give yourself a little bit of a runway.
Yeah.
Because Baduelo's game, we've talked about it numerous times on the show. If you could pack the pain on her and have her catch the ball with her back to the goal, she's not as dangerous as she is in the open field, right? Like that's pretty apparent. And she just didn't get those open field opportunities. So you just kind of wonder, Lyon, you got to imagine they're going to have the ball in their attacking third. So there might be more of those chances. Barcelona obviously dominated possession. I think they were in the high 60s in both matches against Chelsea.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to be the case against Lyon. That might actually open up some space for Baduelo. And then CGH, obviously Carpenter's a tough customer, but maybe it's a little bit of a let-off not having to go against Ashley Lawrence.
It'll be interesting to see. Let me just fact check here. So Ellie Carpenter is their right back. So they had Betuelo playing on the left side. So we might get some Betuelo Carpenter matchups.
That'd be tasty.
Yeah, we're in for another track meet. We'll cover the other match when we cover the other match, the Chirwinga Carpenter track meet that was going on there. And so, and then you're going to have on that right side, you have Carpenter. They've been playing Haran over there on the right, and then Diani up front. But Damaris is always going to be kind of in that mix on the counterattack. So that'll be really interesting to see how Barcelona deals with that.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So I got my sides mixed up. So Carpenter's probably going to be on Baduelo's side, which puts Basha on CGH's side. So now...
Awesome.
The CGH is probably going to be looking at that matchup with a little bit more enthusiasm. I'm going to be interested to see. We talked about a couple of these players. Fridolina Rolfo, Aitana Bonmatí, obviously. Kira Walsh, she's kind of rock solid in the middle. Like you don't kind of hear from her, but she is an excellent connector in the middle of the field there. I kind of am getting this feeling that Barcelona is going to need special play from the players that aren't those three. So it's probably like Patri, Guijarro, probably, who knows if like Pina gets in, maybe you got Batier kind of like running up like it kind of feels like somebody else is going to have to unlock something for this Barcelona side. And they're going to need those three in the middle, Rolfo, Walsh, Bonmatí, to just do what they do. Right. Yeah. And I think that is where we're going to find maybe potentially a difference maker. You hate to kind of call them like ancillary players, but like, they're sort of like the players that they're difference makers or X factors, however you want to think about that. It kind of does feel like, if they get like a Patri goal, from a little bit of distance, a little bit of a stunner, that might send shockwaves to the final.
That's a great call. And at some point, when you have a team full of world beaters, at some point you have to draw a line and refer to the other players as ancillary pieces or role players, whatever you want to call them. So I don't think that's any disrespect to Patri or Fridolina Rolfo or Lucy Bronze, Ona Batier, players who could go to a lot of clubs and immediately be the second or even best player on the side. If you're Lyon, you're gonna have to focus on Bonmatí, Betuelo, and CGH. That's just the way it goes. And then pray you don't get beat by one of those other great players.
The first thing I'm going to be looking forward to is like the lineups and the formation, obviously, like just because we've seen some movement from both of these teams. And I think Giralda's really nailed the changes going into the second Chelsea match. You know, they caught some breaks, but I mean, it seemed like the perfect setup and paid dividends pretty early on. So I think Barcelona's got to be feeling really good going into the final for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just to have made a comeback like that, shut that Chelsea team down at home, and really kept a stranglehold on the match as soon as they equalized. Like, they were just in control of the match. Independent of the scoreboard, they basically were in the driver's seat. So yeah, I think if you're Barcelona, you're probably feeling really, really good.
I think so. That's probably a common phrase throughout most of the history of the club. If you're a Barcelona fan, you're probably feeling pretty good. So you mentioned the formation. It's worth saying that Rolfo was lined up at left back in the first leg against Chelsea. And now obviously it didn't work that great against Chelsea, but I'm curious, do you drift her back in, especially when you have Diani running up that right side? We'll talk more about her from the Lyon match. If you have her streaking down there and you get a lot of one-on-one of her versus Engen, I don't think you like that matchup if you're Barcelona.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can get into that when we talk about the other one, but interested to see what the back line for Barcelona looks like.
100%. All right, let's scoot ahead. The other UEFA Women's Champions League semifinal matchup featured Lyon, PSG. This one took place in Paris. Little big sister, little sister dynamic at play here for sure. Lyon prevails 2-1 in Paris, 5-3 on aggregate. Where do you want to get started with this one?
Ici c'est Paris. Yeah, shout out to the PSG fans. Showed up, showed out. Good crowd, good atmosphere there. But yeah, we got to start with Lyon. They did what they had to do. It was a professional win. We talk about favorites of the program. Caridatu Diani. There were a lot of players who played really well for Lyon. I want to start with Diani first. I thought she was a beast right from Jump Street. There was a moment very, very early in the game, almost as early as that minute 3 goal by Basha. We'll get into that. But where Diani was just straight up just wrestling for the ball. And so for all of our European pals out there, wrestling, RASSLIN apostrophe, different than wrestling. We're talking wrestling here. Like, she's real physical. Thought a steel chair might have came out. Thought maybe she was going to throw somebody through a table. I loved the physicality in her game. She was out there trying to play bully ball right away. I think that's going to lean into some other points that I want to make when we start talking about the final. But Diani could have had a goal. She had a superhuman effort in the 43rd minute that required a superhuman effort from Bilbao to save it. I thought this was another case of big players make big plays in big games. And I thought that's what time Diani was on. I know you saw some other players, but let me just say real quick before we get into that. Diani is A1 headline, top of the list of players who, when I see have the ball and they are 3 to 4 yards outside of the 18, count me in the group of people that goes, shoot, because she should just shoot wherever she is. She's always just shoot.
100%. And I think you rewind back to the first leg, obviously Lyon back against the wall, down 2-0. And she's the one that kind of breaks the seal for Lyon. And then we saw what happened from there. So wonderful call out with Diani. Obviously, she's unbelievable. I wanted to call out a few other players that I thought really brought it from an intensity standpoint. We talked about that first match where, you know, PSG kind of wanted to come out and send a little bit of a message. Just be like, hey, we're here. We're going to be tough to get past. This is what we feel like is our best shot to beat Lyon. So you better bring it. And in that first match, Bon Pastor puts in Danielle Van de Donk when I think she kind of needed like a bolt of energy. Van de Donk in this one gets the start. I thought her, Ellie Carpenter, Salma Basha, who scored that early goal, Melchi Dumornay, those 4 players from an energy standpoint, from an intensity standpoint. I mean, I was like a Karshawe on the other side that's like ready to get in somebody's face. Always. And Van de Donk's like, I'm going to get in your face before you get in my face. You know, like she was just like, she's like, I'm going to like leapfrog your energy here. So I loved what they brought to the match, you know, and it wasn't just kind of fake tough guy stuff. It was smart, physical, aggressive, forward play. At any chance they got, any kind of 50-50 ball, any 40-60 ball, they were on it. They were like just hungry and they were up a goal. When that's the dynamic at play, that really kind of turns it into a different type of match if you're PSG.
Yeah. You know, It really shocked me. I'm curious your opinion on this. In both matches, PSG won the possession battle right about 60-40. And I checked like multiple sources for this. And I was really thinking about it. Like when I saw that it was 60-40 on FootMob after the match, and not that I ever doubt our friends over at FootMob. They have great stats and they're keeping close tabs on this. But I was like, was it really 60-40? I know 60-40 is not like a massive difference in most football matches, but it didn't even really feel 60-40 in favor of PSG. And they were able to hold the ball, but Lyon was just creating more chances and creating better chances.
I mean, in my notes, I kind of jotted down, this is something that I noticed early in the second leg, that it was just back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't think either team was that interested in like holding the ball and, craftily finding a way in. They were just like, let's fucking go.
Right.
Lyon, even having lost the possession battle, outshoots PSG over the two legs 39-24. So I think replaying it in my head, Lyon was just like, we have so much quality. Let's grab it. Let's go. Let's put a strike on goal. Let's make the keeper make a play on it. And as soon as we get the ball back again, let's do the whole thing over again.
Yep.
And I think PSG took them a little bit more craft to get up the pitch, but they were playing a little bit of that same playbook. They were also really aggressive in trying to put shots on goal as well. That maybe kind of played into it. And I'll tell you the one thing that was connected to that initial thought that I had. As soon as I saw that the match was so up and down, I was like, PSG's in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah.
Because Lyon's depth is terrifying. The fact that like they can just go 100 miles an hour for as long as they're on their pitch, and they're bringing somebody in that's just as good, just as dangerous, a change of pace. So you've got to like now you've been chasing Cascarino all game, and now you've got Emil Majri, different kind of player, just as dangerous. So I was like, if this game's going to be a track meet, even with the Chewinga, Katoto, Baltimore, those types of players, I didn't like PSG's chances in that type of game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, man. The depth definitely showed itself there. We're just gonna do a beer match. Obviously, it's the way I like to enjoy my football. The Carpenter Chewinga track meet that we talked about before even the first leg, it played out. I mean, there was a moment in the first half where Chewinga is taking the ball down the field. She's like kind of like in the middle of the 18 out on the wing. And she just tries that move where she just tries to get it onto her left to get to the end line to serve in the cross. And Ellie Carpenter is like, gets into like a sprinter stance, like waiting for her to pull that. And then she pulls it and she takes off with her. And it was an 8-meter dash, but it was still as exciting of a race as you could possibly have. And Carpenter got there and smothered it. Credit to her. That lived up to the hype for me. I'm anxious to see what Carpenter has for Barcelona, but I think you're right. Like PSG, world-class club, they just keep running into this Lyon side. They're going to have something to say about it in the D1F playoffs also. D1F now in the model of the top 4 teams make a small playoff with a semifinal going into the final. So PSG is going to potentially have another look there. They have to get past our old pals Paris FC in the first semifinal.
Let's go.
But we'll see how that looks. So I just think Lyon has too much skill, too much depth, and just too much know-how. I mean, Wendy Renard is back. And now you have the absolute stalwart back there leading your defense with super high IQ, winning aerial balls whenever she wants. They're hard to beat. And it's tough for PSG because I just can't stress how much we love watching this club and the great skill that they have. They just keep running into a juggernaut.
That they do. And shout out to the decision makers out in D1F. More of the melding of women's football and college football for your boys. So I'm sure that you definitely appreciate that with that 4-team playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Got to give PSG some love for sure. They mentioned on the broadcast, Grace Gayoro, Elise de Almeida played every minute of Champions League.
That's tough.
I mean,
let's go.
That is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought up Wendy Renard because after the first match where Katoto looked as slippery as, they just couldn't get a handle on her during that stretch. It just always felt like she was scooting out the side door or she was just kind of like wiggling into some space. And now she's got something and she's firing.
Mm-hmm.
In this second match, I mean, it was shut down from jump. you barely even saw her on the pitch. I mean, she had no space to operate. She barely got touches in dangerous areas. I'm not sure, if she I don't think she put a shot on target.
Not that I remember.
She was totally neutralized. Obviously, PSG gets the big goal from Chawinga, and they just needed, they needed a little bit more than that. This was also mentioned in the broadcast, how many defenders Lyon was committing to just locking down the box. Like, there was just no space to operate. I think once I saw that, I was like, all right, we're going to need like Gronin or maybe like Corbin Albert off the bench or Baltimore or Karshawi to create some magic from some distance, because there is no room to do anything in there.
Rough one for notorious mob boss Sandy Baltimore. Kind of erased throughout this match. Bummer to see, because she's a wonderful player. Didn't do a lot. Had to deal with Van de Donk and Basha on her side of the pitch. That probably had a lot to do with it. There was a moment, I want to say it was like around the 20th, where PSG has a break and Karshawi is leading it. They're going down the field, and I'm like, it's still 5-on-4 Lyon. Like, how was that happen? I thought this was going to be a break. And like, they had committed. But when you have Cascarino in the first half, Dumornay and Diani, you only need one other midfielder up there to have a devastating attack. And shout out to Damaris Agarola. Damaris is, unsung hero in a lot of these matches. There were just a lot of situations where either her and Haran or her and Van de Donk were back there, and there are 5 or 6 players in the defensive 18, and they were just making it impossible for PSG to really have any space to do anything.
Yeah, 100%. I loved what Van de Donk did in this game.
Great.
She was just harassing pretty much up and down the pitch, just making it very difficult. And yeah, that's exactly what it was. Just no space to do anything. They weren't going to get beat, and we like our chances on the break.
Yep.
And imagine you lose Eugenie Le Sommer, Ada Hegerberg to injury, and you just kind of dust off Delphine Cascarino, Melchi Dumornay. Kadi Diani, she's still out there just menacing. And to your point, with those 3 players, you don't even really need a midfielder to run with them. Like, if one of them's got the ball, you kind of trust their decision-making all the way around. Cascarino let one rip early. Damaris, like you mentioned, forced Pico into a save on a ball that was definitely going to go in.
For sure.
PSG keeper Pico, she had an interesting 8 or 10 minute stretch there in the second half where she lost her mind a little bit, but no shots at her. I mean, that was a tough day in terms of having faced as many shots as she did. I want to just kind of pull up the number here real quick. Lyon manages 17 shots, 8 on target. And that's 8 Lyon shots on target, which are a little tougher than your everyday shots on target. So she earned her paycheck that day for sure.
Pico she had a lot of brilliant moments. You're right. She had some sketchy moments. The announcer over here on the American broadcast on DAZN, Pico goes out for a catch, doesn't make the catch, got off her line a little late and doesn't make the catch. And the announcer just goes, "A horrible decision from the keeper." I was like, all right, in real time, we're calling it horrible. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't ideal. A little bit of a mixed bag, but even then, I like looking at a lot of the ratings, including from our pals over at FootMob. Pico still had a 7.4 rating in the match, and Endler had a 7.0 rating in the match because of all the stress that Pico was under. So it's always interesting to see the losing keeper, who had a couple errors, frankly, mental errors, still end up with such a high rating. But some of those diving saves she made were just spectacular.
Oh my God. Yeah, the Dumornay save was crazy.
Huge.
That play you're talking about, I think you're talking about the play where Wendy Renard gets a look at it, where Pico kind of fumbles it. And what was bad was she goes up to get it, she doesn't get it, and then she stumbles away from the goal, she just stumbles out of the play, she stumbles off the screen. And Wendy Renard has a look, missed it maybe by a foot or so. Could have been real trouble for PSG, but yeah, the save on the Dumornay, that's as high leverage as it gets, and that ball was rocketed in. It was such a shot. She dealt with it. Props to Pico, obviously, had her moments for sure.
Yeah,
and a lot like this Barcelona-Chelsea matchup. The better team, the more talented team, the more experienced team just wore down the contender, the up-and-comer, the challenger, and we sort of ended with the result that probably, it was where it should have landed.
I think so. A fair result. I've mentioned it before. We just have a soft spot for this PSG team, but it's not like unearned. If me and you like a team, it's not because there's some kind of plucky underdog. I mean, look at, like, you're talking to America's two foremost Braun fans here.
That's right.
Like, we like a team that has a lot of skill and that will bloody your nose by the end of the match too. And I feel like PSG and Braun kind of fit that mold. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just so much skill. I realize this is my second time kind of alluding to it, but you just have too much class for Lyon. PSG, the arrow's pointing up. They're a great club already. They're likely going to qualify for the Champions League again through this playoff. We'll see, though. I mean, Paris FC, we got love for them, too. They're a tough club, but you lose to Lyon, especially in the heartbreaking fashion in the first leg. Hard to come back from that, even when you're playing at home.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to them, though. They played really tough, and they made Lyon earn it for sure. That was a funny moment when the announcer was talking about the D1F playoffs, where he's like, could you imagine if this Lyon side, they can actually be eliminated, if they lose the first round matchup and miss out on the Champions League? And then he's like, that is, of course, unless they win the Champions League.
Right. Kind of
wild. Totally plausible. But pretty funny. And I think to your point about PSG playing really physical, not being afraid to bloody one's nose, that's what I really loved about this Lyon performance. Because the four players that I shouted out, let's say it again, Van de Donk, Carpenter, Basha, and Dumornay, they were like, okay, you want to play that type of game?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Like, we're here. We're ready. This is the lineup for it. I was also really shocked. We kind of scooted over this. The Selma Basha goal.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things. When there's a short corner, maybe we just run a second player out there, kind of try to do something.
We have to talk to a manager or somebody who works with tactics, because I was thinking this exact same thing in the first leg of the Chelsea-Barcelona tie, where they ran a short corner. And this might be a hint amongst many factors of why I never ended up being an elite athlete. But they start running the short corner to CGH. I'm like, oh no! Watch out! Like, where I start freaking out, I start panicking from my couch because I want to know why you're not doing that. And my men's club that I watch, City, we run it with De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva. And when we start running it, and the other team doesn't send a second player out there, I'm like, okay, let's see what KDB does with this. And we've seen Peruelo score off those. We've seen CGH either score or set up goals off of those. So there has to be a tactical reason why you're not running the second player out there. I think it might just be because I like the numbers that I still have in the box. Maybe that's what they're doing. But I think I side more with you of, you can't let a world-class player have a free look.
I mean, wide open look. Wide open look.
Too open.
2 minutes into the match. I mean, I thought it was really fun. There was a couple things I thought were interesting. So I actually had to fact check this. This is Basha's first goal of the season.
That's amazing.
In 25 matches.
That's great.
Basha's first goal. I challenge anyone on the internet to bring me a player more impactful who in 24 matches had 0 goals than Selma Basha.
That's fantastic.
What the fuck? That's crazy. And 1 goal and 9 assists.
Look at that. Let's go.
Let's fucking go. That is totally my kind of player. I'm very tempted. I mean, I might save it for the final, but I've still got 4 ITC Hall of Fame slots for the calendar year 2024. We'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're still just in April, so let me just chill.
Absolutely worth it. Great goal by Basha. Pico seemed to react a little late. It looked like she might have been screened somewhat, but it was still a missile that Basha hit into near post to knock it in. So huge credit to her. Different kind of Basha ball was the first thing I wrote in the notes. Basha ball is, I'm serving in brilliant crosses. I'm making sure everybody else gets set up. I was like, is the second page of Basha ball just I'm going to rip a shot early in the match and tuck it in, put ourselves out in front here?
I mean, I like to think about Basha ball as the accuracy. And
it really is.
To put it through that one little crevice there,
wild.
That early in the match was just brilliant. And we had talked about Lyon's affinity for scoring early. I thought it was very interesting. I got it here in my notes. So obviously the Basha goal happens roughly 2 minutes and 2 seconds into the match, right?
Yeah.
The other 4 goals, 80th minute, 81st minute, 85th minute, 86th minute. So when we think about a couple things, the depth, obviously like that shows right there. One of your favorites or one of your, burgeoning favorites, Amel Majri, she comes on as a sub in both, involved in the scoring in both matches again. First match, Becho starts. Becho comes in as a sub in this one. I mean, this is something that is going to be interesting when you think about the Barcelona matchup. We'll get to that in a minute, but I kind of keep thinking about what Giraldez did at the end of the first Barcelona-Chelsea match, where it's like, all right, well, let's try Vicky Lopez. Let's try Alexia. Let's try, the subs felt a little scrambly. Like they were kind of like scrambling when I'm like, then I kept thinking about the Emma Hayes quote, hey, this is still halftime. Giraldez kind of settles himself down going into the second match, much more well thought out, and obviously the results bear it out. But the depth of this Lyon side, I think, could really be really interesting going into the next match, especially considering how effective they were in the 80s, like in terms of like the last 10 plus minutes of the match, both matches actually.
I think it's a great point, and I think it's going to bode well for an absolute banger of a final, where in the last 15 minutes, either team could score a goal, and whether it's the goal to seal the thing, or it's a goal to equalize, or it's a goal to put you one ahead, I think that's all extremely live. You mentioned her. Let's talk about it. Amel Majri on that Dumornay goal in the 81st minute. So I'll back it up a little bit. Dumornay gets tackled near midfield, gets back up.
Come on,
in the run of play, gets tackled, gets back to her feet, gets the ball out to Becho. Becho drives the ball down the pitch, serves it into Majri. Can we just, and shout out to the color commentary on the American broadcast, who just would not stop talking about the Amel Majri touch to leave it for Dumornay. And she should have. And she was 1,000,000,000% right. That touch from Majri, the presence of mind, the ability to just leave it just enough so it doesn't get, so it doesn't kind of die and get picked off or get mucked up by a defender. Just a moment of brilliance from Majri. She should have hit you with the call me Selly again after that, but it's obvious it's Dumornay's moment for scoring the goal. But that is a piece of football that you love about the sport, is that the assist is every bit as beautiful as the goal.
Unreal. Just unreal play. And, very high stakes moment. I mean, the match is within a goal. Like, this could kind of flip either way. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Basha scores early. Chewinka scores essentially 5 minutes before halftime. And the Dumornay goal to kind of like seal it. There's like a 30, 40 minutes where the whole tie is within one goal. So this is like a high pressure moment. And, the fact that Majri's a sub, Becho's a sub, and like they're able to put this magic together that late into a match is just, it's insane. It's insane. This final is going to be bonkers. I cannot wait.
Totally agree. Absolute banger on deck. I do want to make sure I just referenced the color commentator on this match. Gilly Flaherty, English player, former Lady Gunner.
Let's go.
Gilly Flaherty was all over it. Just the Amel Majri touch. Absolutely brilliant. Dumornay fires it home. That's pretty much all she wrote. And they're already, probably not because they're professional athletes and they're locked in, but everybody else looking at that final going, okay, Barcelona, Lyon. Everybody had a feeling we were going to get there. We were going to get here eventually, but not the way we did. Nobody saw the 4-4 Benfica draw. Nobody saw, except your boys, nobody saw the tough matches versus Bron for Barcelona. Nobody saw the...
Except your boys.
Except your boys, obviously. And nobody saw some of the tough matches for Lyon. I mean, nobody saw the draw coming against Bron, except your boys. That's right. This is as good of a final as we could have asked for, but we actually got a super interesting path to even get here. I mean, May 25th, just fucking get here already.
Well, a little bit of a surprise for the audience. So your boys are going to go live after the final. So
what do you know?
If you're not going to be in the building, once the match wraps, hop onto YouTube. We're going to be streaming live. You can catch it on the pod after the fact. But come hang out with us. Come kick it with us. We are going to be, I'm sure, losing our minds for, I don't know, roughly an hour and a half on YouTube. What else are you going to be doing at that point? We'll have a couple beers on deck. You'll get the nice, crack into the beer sound, maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those over the course of maybe 90 plus minutes with your boys. So come hang out, mark your calendars. We're going to be live, reacting, recapping, trying to collect ourselves after what I'm sure is going to be just an epic, epic final.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it. As soon as you were like, hey, man, what do you think we should try this? I was like, okay, why not? I think we could probably do some live producing right now. Maybe we'll do like a Q&A. We'll try to, we can incorporate, like we say, you know what? I'm just going to say it because I've been thinking about this for a while. Smartest football fans in the world following this program.
I agree with that.
I mean, we got people who are watching the games, giving us info on like what they've been seeing. We have people who like are clearly putting a lot of thought into what they're watching. So, I mean, we always say it, at the risk of being sentimental or whatever. We just appreciate you guys watching and like caring about the actual gameplay as much or more than we do. So it's always cool to see you guys be like, well, I kind of like this look. And I liked when they switched to this defensive back five instead. It's just like, oh yeah, fuck, I didn't think of that. So like, I figure in a live environment, I'm very much looking forward to rocking with you guys, but also please keep in mind, I'm going to just speak for myself here. I could very much be terrible at this. So just give me a little, let me get my shots off and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely subscribe on YouTube. But more importantly, follow us on X/Twitter, ITC_pod. We'll be dropping details and links there heading into the final, so you'll know what to do. You know where to find us. Could be that we find a different platform. Maybe we go somewhere that could provide a little bit more interactivity in case we want to bring some of you all into the mix, get some of your breakdowns, some of your takes in real time.
Hell yeah.
That would be pretty fucking awesome. So definitely keep it locked for that. Anything else you want to hit, Lyon PSG? Well, what about the final? I don't know that, it might be a little too early to kind of really uncork a finals prediction. We're going to have a proper preview coming up here soon with possibly a special guest or two.
Mm-hmm.
More on that later. Where's your head at with regard to the final?
I said it last week when we talked about the second leg of Barcelona going to London to play Chelsea. I believe the phrase I used was, I'm not in the business of betting against Barcelona. Mm-hmm. I think I remain in that business. I will say that the second leg of the Lyon PSG match gave me some concerns, certainly. It would be crazy to think that Barcelona is some kind of like overwhelming favorite. I think I cannot wait to see the betting odds on this. I want to see kind of what our pals in Las Vegas or Monte Carlo or wherever you might like to gamble. I'm really interested where they set the line, like how heavy of a favorite Barcelona might be. I don't think it should be a lot, but I tend to lean on in the two legs of the semifinal versus Chelsea, they didn't get a Perejuelo or a CGH match. How much longer are we going to wait before we get one of those two having a match? And what if they both have a great match at the same time and it happens to be in the final in Bilbao? Then I think Lyon might be in real trouble.
Hard to argue with that. I mean, I think Barcelona is at the mountaintop right now.
Yes.
Lyon has some of that institutional championship DNA that goes back a little further, though.
Hell yeah.
They've been in the mix forever. I'm looking at some odds here. It looks like Barcelona's in the minus 300 range, Lyon plus 250 to win.
That's heavy.
That's a little heavy. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. The one thing that I'm having trouble reconciling, Lyon's depth.
Yeah.
If this gets into deep waters, I kind of like, those players coming off the Lyon bench and making a difference a little bit more than I like. Obviously Pina's great. Vicky Lopez, she could be explosive, but I just kind of like the Lyon depth a little bit more. And I think physically we saw how Barcelona struggled with Mayra Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got Diani up there, you got Melchi up there, Cascarino up there, like who knows if Ada Hegerberg's back. I rewatched the first Chelsea-Barca match. Mayra Ramirez was feasting on Paredes. Like pretty much whoever you threw out there. Engen, Paredes. She had that moment where she just throws Patry like halfway across the 18, just in a fit of rage. So it's like, why couldn't that happen?
Mm-hmm.
With like the big bodies and the physical players and like just the hunger, the attacking nature of like those Lyon forwards. I mean, that's the only thing that's giving me a little bit of pause and preventing me from just saying, hey, this is Barcelona's trophy to lose.
I think that's totally fair, and I'm glad you mentioned it. You actually reminded me of what I was trying to hint at early in the segment. Is Diani was so physical out there. There was actually one point where I was like, is she just like gearing up to go out there and start throwing around Ingrid Eggen in the final? Like, is she just like, hey, I'm coming for you, like Clubber Lang style? Like, you better go hide because I'm going to come out here and start brutalizing players. That absolutely gave me some pause. I've already mentioned, I've said it like 3 times. It's going to be an absolute banger. I think we're in for a classic. I just think if we're doing predictions, I mean, I've said this like sometimes when I look at two squads, if at the end of the match, Aitana Bonmati is holding the trophy, I don't want to be like, I bet against that. I bet against Aitana Bonmati holding the trophy. That seems silly in hindsight. So I think I'm just going to stay ahead of it. I'm going to say early. I reserve the right to change this when we do the preview.
Whoa. No.
We're not doing that?
No, we're not doing that. No.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, that was weak. Thank you.
No.
That was Wendy Renard level leadership by you. Thank you for stopping me from making it. It's fucking April 29th. I didn't need to make that prediction. Thank you for being the leader of the show.
We got a lot of work to do. And you know what? If you want our prediction, subscribe to the pod. Let's go.
Yeah.
Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to partake, we are here. We're dealing. There's going to be some predictions coming down the pike. There's going to be some special guests coming on to help us break down this final. What a fucking journey.
Amazing.
I mean, I just feel so lucky that we've been able to pretty much follow. I mean, I feel like we probably watched every minute of Barcelona Lyon in the Champions League. I feel pretty confident saying that. So we're going to have a hell of a time kind of like chopping it up. We've got 3+ weeks to kind of get all of our ducks in a row, make some proper predictions, do our homework, get everybody ready to go. And like I said, on the day of the final, we're all going to watch it together, and then we're all going to hang out afterwards. Bring your beers. We're going to crack them together to celebrate a great Champions League run. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys, just joining us on this Champions League journey. We're almost there. We're almost to the finish line. We will be back live right after the match, May 25th. Mark your calendars. Make sure you're following us at ITC_pod on X. Remember, like if you liked, and subscribe or follow into the channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. And a huge thank you to my co-host as well. Never a Luke Longley, never a Scottie Pippen. He's the MJ that keeps this ship plowing forward, bringing home trophies, doing what you do. Mr. Grand Angle, I appreciate you, man.
Buddy, I can't accept it. I got to say, this is your MJ flu game, man. Look, you're fighting through, and I'll take being Luke Longley from Melbourne, Australia. I mean, we mentioned Chelsea earlier in this episode. We love a great Australian and Sam Kerr. So it's been a pleasure riding along with you, getting through it. Get some rest, my good man. Same to everybody else out there. We got a lot more football to watch on the way to this final, and we will see you there.
Fair enough. The Sam Kerr to my Ellie Carpenter. I'll take it.
Let's go.